modern dating landscape has undergone a profound transformation that extends far beyond the obvious technological disruptions of dating apps and social media. Beneath the surface of these visible changes lies a more insidious shift in fundamental human attachment patterns that is reshaping how entire generations approach intimate relationships. Avoidant attachment, once considered a relatively uncommon psychological pattern, has emerged as the dominant relationship style across contemporary dating culture. This rise represents not merely a statistical increase, but a fundamental restructuring of how humans connect, commit, and experience emotional intimacy. Understanding this phenomenon requires examining the complex interplay of technological, social, economic, and psychological factors that have created an entire generation of individuals who simultaneously crave connection while maintaining sophisticated defenses against the very intimacy they seek. The technological architecture of emotional distance. Modern technology has fundamentally altered the neurological and psychological processes that govern human attachment formation. The digital revolution has created unprecedented conditions for developing avoidant attachment patterns by providing sophisticated tools for maintaining emotional distance while appearing socially connected. These technological systems have become the primary training ground for an entire generation, learning to navigate relationships through screens, algorithms, and carefully curated digital personas, rather than through direct emotional experience. Dating applications have revolutionized mate selection by transforming potential partners into commodities that can be evaluated, categorized, and discarded through simple finger gestures. This commodification process trains users to approach relationships with consumer mentalities, viewing partners as replaceable products rather than unique individuals deserving of emotional investment. The endless supply of potential matches creates psychological conditions that mirror classic avoidant attachment patterns. The constant awareness of alternatives prevents deep investment in any single relationship while maintaining the illusion of abundant choice. The asynchronous nature of digital communication has fundamentally altered how emotional intimacy develops between potential partners. Text messaging, social media interactions, and dating app conversations allow individuals to craft carefully controlled responses while avoiding the immediate emotional vulnerability required for authentic connection. This communication style enables users to maintain emotional distance while appearing engaged, creating perfect conditions for developing sophisticated avoidance strategies that feel natural and socially acceptable. Social media platforms have created unprecedented opportunities for emotional surveillance and comparison that fuel avoidant attachment patterns. Users can monitor their partners, friends, and potential partners' emotional states, social connections, and lifestyle choices without engaging in direct emotional communication. This surveillance capability satisfies attachment needs for connection and security while avoiding the vulnerability required for genuine intimacy, creating psychological conditions that reinforce avoidant relationship patterns. The gamification elements embedded in modern dating technology have transformed relationship formation into achievement-based activities focused on metrics, matches, and conquest, rather than emotional connection. These systems reward behaviors that align with avoidant attachment patterns, maintaining multiple options, avoiding deep investment, and focusing on external validation rather than internal emotional development. The psychological reward systems built into these platforms train users to seek stimulation and novelty rather than stability and depth. The cultural normalization of emotional unavailability. Contemporary culture has systematically normalized and even valorized emotional unavailability as a desirable relationship characteristic. This cultural shift has transformed behaviors traditionally associated with avoidant attachment dysfunction into markers of strength, independence, and emotional sophistication. The result is a social environment where emotional distance is celebrated, while emotional vulnerability is increasingly viewed as weakness or manipulation. Popular culture representations of ideal relationships consistently emphasize independence, emotional control, and resistance to vulnerability as attractive qualities. Television shows, movies, music, and social media content promote relationship models where partners maintain significant emotional distance while engaging in superficial romantic gestures. These cultural messages teach viewers that healthy relationships require minimal emotional investment and that excessive emotional needs indicate personal dysfunction or immaturity. The contemporary emphasis on individual achievement and career success has created social environments where emotional availability is increasingly viewed as a liability rather than an asset. Professional cultures reward individuals who maintain emotional distance, make decisions based on logic rather than emotion, and avoid the potential complications that come with deep emotional commitments. This professional socialization extends into personal relationships, creating individuals who approach romantic partnerships with the same emotional detachment they use in business contexts. Modern therapeutic and self-help movements have inadvertently contributed to the normalization of avoidant attachment by promoting concepts like emotional independence, healthy boundaries, and self-love in ways that discourage appropriate emotional interdependence. While these concepts have legitimate applications, their popularization has created cultural narratives that frame normal attachment needs as unhealthy dependencies and emotional vulnerability as personal weakness. The rise of feminist and individualistic ideologies, while providing crucial social progress in many areas, has also contributed to cultural suspicion of traditional relationship structures and emotional interdependence. These movements have created social environments where expressing attachment needs or seeking emotional security through relationships is increasingly viewed as regressive or anti-feminist, particularly for women who are encouraged to prioritize independence over emotional connection. The economic foundations of relationship avoidance. The modern economic landscape has created structural conditions that actively discourage the formation of stable, intimate relationships while rewarding behaviors consistent with avoidant attachment patterns. These economic pressures operate at both individual and societal levels, creating practical barriers to intimacy while incentivizing emotional independence and relationship flexibility. Economic instability and uncertainty have fundamentally altered how individuals approach long-term relationship planning and commitment. The traditional economic foundations that previously supported stable relationships, secure employment, predictable career progression, affordable housing, and reliable financial planning have been systematically undermined by economic changes that prioritize flexibility and mobility over stability and security. This economic environment makes long-term relationship commitments appear financially risky while making emotional independence seem practically necessary. The gig economy and modern employment patterns require unprecedented levels of personal mobility and flexibility that are incompatible with deep emotional commitments and relationship stability. Career success increasingly depends on the ability to relocate quickly, work irregular hours, and prioritize professional opportunities over personal relationships. These economic demands create practical incentives for maintaining emotional distance and avoiding commitments that might interfere with career advancement. Housing costs and urban living conditions have created social environments that discourage the formation of stable living arrangements necessary for developing secure attachment patterns. The inability to afford private, stable living spaces forces individuals to maintain temporary, transitional living situations that prevent the environmental stability, needed for emotional security and intimate relationship development. Student debt and extended educational requirements have delayed traditional relationship milestones while creating financial pressures that make relationship commitments appear economically threatening. Young adults are increasingly forced to prioritize individual financial survival over relationship investment, creating psychological conditions where emotional independence becomes a practical necessity rather than a personal choice. The rise of dual career requirements for middle-class lifestyle maintenance has created relationship dynamics where both partners must prioritize professional advancement, leaving limited emotional resources available for relationship development. These economic pressures create couples who function more like business partnerships than emotionally intimate relationships, reinforcing avoidant attachment patterns through practical necessity. The psychological trauma of modern life. Contemporary life has created unprecedented levels of psychological stress and trauma that interfere with normal attachment system functioning. These widespread trauma patterns are producing entire generations of individuals whose attachment systems have been systematically damaged by social conditions that previous generations never encountered. Understanding this trauma landscape is crucial for comprehending why avoidant attachment has become the dominant relationship pattern among young adults. Information overload and constant connectivity have created chronic stress conditions that interfere with the nervous system regulation necessary for secure attachment formation. The human brain, designed for processing limited amounts of information within small social groups, is overwhelmed by the constant stream of information, social comparison, and emotional stimulation provided by modern technology. This chronic overstimulation creates psychological conditions similar to trauma responses, where individuals develop protective emotional numbing to cope with overwhelming stimulation. Social media and digital communication have created new forms of relational trauma through cyberbullying, online rejection, and digital abandonment experiences that occur during crucial attachment development periods. Young people are experiencing relationship rejection and social exclusion in ways that are more public, persistent, and psychologically damaging than previous generations encountered. These digital trauma experiences are creating attachment wounds that manifest as avoidant relationship patterns in adulthood. The breakdown of traditional community structures and extended family support systems has left individuals without the social safety nets necessary for developing secure attachment patterns. The isolation and social fragmentation characteristic of modern life create conditions where individuals must develop self-protective strategies that prioritize emotional independence over vulnerability and connection. Political polarization and social conflict have created environments of chronic interpersonal tension and mistrust that interfere with attachment system functioning. The constant exposure to social conflict, political hostility, and cultural division creates psychological conditions where emotional openness and vulnerability feel dangerous and potentially costly. Environmental anxiety and future uncertainty have created existential stress conditions that make long-term relationship planning feel unrealistic or irresponsible. Climate change concerns, political instability, and social uncertainty create psychological environments where emotional investment in relationships feels like a luxury rather than a natural human need. The attachment system dysfunction. The widespread rise of avoidant attachment represents a fundamental dysfunction in human attachment systems that extends beyond individual psychological problems into species-level adaptation challenges. Modern life has created environmental conditions that are so different from those in which human attachment systems evolved that normal attachment functioning has become increasingly difficult to maintain across entire populations. The speed and scale of modern social change have outpaced the human attachment system's ability to adapt effectively. Human attachment patterns evolved in small, stable social groups with predictable relationship structures and clear social roles. Modern life requires navigating complex, rapidly changing social environments with unclear relationship expectations and constant social flux. This mismatch between evolved attachment needs and contemporary social conditions creates psychological stress that manifests as avoidant attachment patterns. The contradiction between biological attachment needs and cultural relationship expectations has created internal conflicts that many individuals resolve through avoidant strategies. Human beings are biologically designed for emotional interdependence and stable pair bonding, but contemporary culture promotes independence and relationship flexibility as ideal characteristics. This contradiction creates psychological tension that many people resolve by suppressing their attachment needs rather than challenging cultural expectations. The lack of attachment education and emotional development support in modern educational and social systems has left entire generations without the knowledge and skills necessary for forming secure, intimate relationships. Unlike previous generations who learned relationship skills through extended family observation and community mentorship, modern individuals must navigate complex relationship challenges without adequate preparation or support. The medicalization and pathologization of normal attachment needs has created cultural environments where seeking emotional security through relationships is increasingly viewed as psychological dysfunction rather than normal human behavior. Mental health approaches that emphasize individual self-sufficiency over relational healing inadvertently reinforce avoidant attachment patterns by framing attachment needs as problems to be solved rather than legitimate human requirements. The gender dynamics revolution. The transformation of gender roles and expectations has created unprecedented confusion and conflict around relationship formation that disproportionately promotes avoidant attachment patterns. These changes, while providing important social progress in many areas, have also disrupted traditional relationship scripts without providing clear alternatives, leaving individuals without reliable frameworks for navigating intimate relationships. The evolution of masculine identity expectations has created particular challenges for men's attachment system functioning. Traditional masculine roles provided clear relationship scripts that, while problematic in many ways, offered structured approaches to emotional intimacy and commitment. Modern masculinity requires navigating emotional vulnerability and relationship equality without adequate models or social support, leading many men to retreat into avoidant patterns that feel safer and more manageable. Women's changing social and economic roles have created new relationship dynamics where traditional feminine relationship strategies no longer provide security or satisfaction. The pressure to maintain professional success while managing relationship responsibilities has created practical incentives for emotional independence and relationship avoidance. Many women are adopting traditionally masculine relationship approaches as protective strategies against economic and emotional vulnerability. The rise of hookup culture and casual relationship norms has provided socially acceptable alternatives to traditional relationship formation that align with avoidant attachment preferences. These cultural changes have made it possible to meet basic social and sexual needs without engaging in the emotional vulnerability required for intimate relationships, reducing the practical incentives for overcoming avoidant attachment patterns. Dating market dynamics have created competitive environments where emotional availability is increasingly viewed as a strategic disadvantage. The abundance of potential partners available through dating technology has created relationship markets where emotional independence and limited availability are perceived as attractive qualities, while emotional neediness or attachment-seeking behaviors are viewed as unattractive or desperate. The intimacy crisis mechanisms. The widespread fear of intimacy characteristic of contemporary dating culture operates through specific psychological mechanisms that transform normal human connection needs into sources of anxiety and avoidance. Understanding these mechanisms reveals how entire populations can simultaneously crave connection while systematically avoiding the behaviors necessary for achieving it. Vulnerability aversion has become a learned survival strategy in social environments where emotional openness is frequently punished through rejection, abandonment, or exploitation. Individuals learn to associate emotional vulnerability with danger and develop sophisticated protective strategies that prevent authentic connection while maintaining the appearance of social engagement. Performance anxiety around emotional authenticity has created relationship dynamics where individuals focus more on appearing emotionally healthy than on actual emotional development. The pressure to present perfect emotional availability while maintaining complete independence creates impossible standards that make genuine intimacy feel unattainable and dangerous. Comparison culture and social media have created environments where every relationship is measured against curated, idealized representations that make real intimacy appear inadequate or disappointing. The constant exposure to apparently perfect relationships creates unrealistic expectations that make genuine emotional connection feel insufficient or flawed. The commodification of emotional labor has transformed natural relationship behaviors into transactional exchanges that reduce emotional intimacy to calculated investments and returns. This transactional approach to emotional connection prevents the spontaneous vulnerability and emotional risk-taking necessary for developing genuine intimacy. The neurobiological impact. The prevalence of avoidant attachment in modern dating has created measurable changes in brain structure and function that reinforce these patterns across entire populations. These neurobiological adaptations represent the human brain's attempt to function effectively in social environments that are fundamentally mismatched with evolutionary attachment needs. Chronic stress and hypervigilance associated with modern dating environments have altered stress response systems in ways that make emotional vulnerability feel physically dangerous. The nervous system adaptations developed in response to dating trauma and rejection create physiological conditions where emotional openness triggers fight or flight responses rather than bonding behaviors. The dopamine reward systems that govern attachment formation have been disrupted by dating technology and social media in ways that reduce the neurochemical rewards associated with stable, intimate relationships while increasing the rewards associated with novelty seeking and emotional distance. Empathy and emotional attunement abilities have been systematically undermined by digital communication patterns that reduce exposure to direct emotional feedback and nonverbal communication. The reduced practice in reading and responding to emotional cues creates neurological changes that make emotional intimacy more difficult and less rewarding. The intergenerational transmission. The rise of avoidant attachment has created intergenerational transmission patterns where parents with avoidant attachment styles are raising children who develop even more extreme avoidant patterns. This transmission occurs through modeling, environmental creation, and the absence of secure attachment examples, rather than through direct teaching or intentional messaging. Parenting styles influenced by contemporary achievement culture prioritize independence and emotional self-regulation over emotional connection and interdependence. Children raised in these environments learn to view emotional needs as problems to be solved rather than legitimate requirements for human development. The absence of extended family and community support systems has left parents without adequate emotional resources to provide the consistent emotional availability necessary for raising securely attached children. Overwhelmed parents often resort to parenting strategies that promote emotional independence as a survival mechanism rather than optimal development approach. Educational systems that prioritize academic achievement over emotional development are producing students who excel at cognitive tasks while remaining underdeveloped in emotional intimacy and relationship skills. These educational approaches inadvertently train children to approach relationships with the same competitive, achievement-oriented mindset they use for academic success. The path forward. Addressing the rise of avoidant attachment in modern dating requires systematic changes at technological, cultural, economic, and individual levels that acknowledge the fundamental mismatch between contemporary life conditions and human attachment needs. These solutions must address root causes rather than merely treating symptoms if they are to create lasting change in relationship patterns. Technological solutions must focus on designing digital platforms that support rather than undermine authentic human connection. This requires moving beyond engagement-maximizing algorithms towards systems that promote emotional development, relationship skills, and genuine intimacy rather than constant stimulation and novelty seeking. Cultural change must involve deliberately promoting relationship models that balance individual autonomy with appropriate emotional interdependence. This requires challenging cultural narratives that pathologize attachment needs while providing realistic frameworks for navigating the complexities of modern intimate relationships. Economic policies must address the structural conditions that make relationship stability economically difficult or impossible for large populations. This includes housing policy, employment security, healthcare access, and social support systems that provide the practical foundations necessary for stable, intimate relationships. Individual healing work must focus on attachment repair and emotional development rather than simply managing symptoms or improving dating success. This requires therapeutic approaches that address the root causes of avoidant attachment while providing practical skills for navigating modern relationship challenges. The recognition that avoidant attachment has become a widespread cultural phenomenon rather than an individual psychological problem opens possibilities for collective solutions that address the social conditions creating these patterns. Understanding the rise of avoidant attachment as a rational adaptation to irrational social conditions provides hope for creating environments where secure attachment can once again become the norm rather than the exception.